I'm here. I actually started... So close to doing it right. I actually started the stream just like a professional YouTuber. How cool is that? How cool is that? With some music and am I going out? Yeah, I'm going out. Everything sounds good. My bit rate's good. Hey, you do something 3 days in a row, you get I shouldn't speak too soon. I was about to say you get good at it, and I will screw up something, and then it'll all be a nightmare. But for now, everything seems okay. We're streaming hell, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. It's my new lifestyle. The lifestyle of streaming. Q&A stream. I'm doing good. Scotian FPV. How are you doing tonight? My friend Vampire4997 is back. We answered one of your questions last night. We solved a question for him last night. Nice. No lag. Teflon. No lag today. I hope not. I did try something a little different tonight. So I've set the stream to low latency instead of normal latency. YouTube has three options. Normal latency, low latency, and near real time. And this one is the middle. So I should be a little bit closer to your chats will be just a little closer to less latency. So that'll be good. The song, for those of you who are wondering, is called Blurred Out by Yamoti. Y-O-M-O-T-I. And Blurred Out by Yamoti. Got it from Epidemic Sound. Epidemic Sound is the music service that I use. So a little plug for Epidemic Sound there. Once again, the Purple Cup has made it back. And in the interest of all the kids out there whose parents want them to watch my educational streams, I'm not going to tell you what's in it. Joe Mama knows what's in it. Joe Mama, I just for the first time, Joe Mama is a member of my Discord, by the way, in case you're new here. There we go. Check it out, guys. I got the chat. I got the YouTube chat. I got the super chats. Anybody who wants to throw me a couple bucks and make sure I know. This goes by so fast. So anybody who wants to throw me a couple bucks and get a super chat, just click this button right here. And this over here, this is my Discord, which is for my patrons only. Pay attention to them during the live stream as well. Joe Mama, I just now for the first time figured out that your username is a play on words. Joe Mama, Yo Mama. I just figured that out. I just thought that you were the mother of someone named Joe. I don't know. Okay. So we're gonna do some Q&A, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do about 2 hours of Q&A from 8 to 10, and then then I'll go to bed like I have been doing. Teflon asks, are there any Europe-friendly streams soon? Teflon, I feel you. I'm aware of that as a thing that would be good. So about half of my viewers are in the U.S., according to my Google stats. And about half of my viewers are outside the U.S., which Europe probably makes up another 20%, maybe a little bit more than that. So I definitely try to take into account you guys when I pick my time zones. At the same time, I just, it fits my schedule best to do it in the evening. So it's tough. I try. I know you guys are out there, and I would like to stream at a time that's more convenient for Europe, and that'll happen eventually. Yeah, Enoch, I would think a European stream would be about maybe... I try to do the Europe streams on a weekend, like a Sunday afternoon at maybe 1 p.m., which is about maybe 5 or 6 p.m. for most of Europe-ish, but still people in the U.S. can make it. So, let's start with this question from Snowbanks. Snowbanks throwing out the emoji exclamation points. That's what it takes to get my attention. That's all. Snowbanks asks, why can't I connect my Eachine Wizard ARF with my FlySky radio? Well, it's probably a personal problem. No. Snowbanks, it's going to be tough to answer that question without a lot more information about, what receiver you're using, how the receiver is hooked up. One thing I would say, though, Snowbanks, let's pull up a picture here. Let's just pull up a picture here for everybody who's following along. Hold on. No, how about right here? Sorry, guys, 1 second. So it's the SP Racing F3 is the flight controller on the Wizard X220. And on the SP Racing F3... No. I just want the image. Can I have the image? Hang on. Open image in new tab. There we go. There we go. On the SP Racing F3, if you've got a FlySky receiver, my recommendation is that you use UART3 RX. That's this pad right here. And you can use 5-volt and ground right here to power the receiver. UART3 RX is where I would put the iBus or S-Bus, whichever one your receiver does. FlySky receivers can do both. I would recommend that that's where you put that signal pad, and that is how you can get that working. Then you're going to go in Betaflight, and here in the Ports tab, for UART3, you're going to enable Serial RX on your flight controller, and then in the Configuration tab, you're going to set Serial-based receiver right here, and either S-Bus or iBus. Again, FlySky receivers can do both, and whichever one your receiver is doing, then that's what you're going to need. And that's how you would do it, Snowbangs. That's the best I can do right here on a live stream without just sort of holding your hand and walking you through it. Joel Stewart says it's 11 a.m. in Australia, so this is the perfect time for Australia. Good, good. We'll get it on Australia. Scotian FPV asks, thoughts on the new Jumper radio? Yes, I have. So you're talking about the Jumper T16, I believe. Hang on, let me pull this sucker up. This is the Jumper T16, and it is a new radio from Jumper. Jumper has been making some real strides lately trying to put out radios that get some attention. Now, the Jumper radio you may be familiar with is the maybe the T12. Now, that is a multi-protocol. That's this guy. It's the multi-protocol radio from Jumper. I reviewed that, and I thought it was pretty small, and it was so annoying that this button layout was made for deviation, but then they had kind of shoehorned OpenTX into it, and the buttons just kind of didn't make any sense. But overall, I thought it was okay radio for people who have smaller hands or want a smaller radio. The T16 really looks like sort of a strong push in that direction to make a radio that's like takes Jumper seriously. Now I haven't seen this radio. I am going to be reviewing it, but I will say this about it. Trappy, the owner of TBS, Team Black Sheep, has been talking this radio up. And I think, let me just verify this. Jumper T16. Are they selling it? No. I thought they were selling it. Trappy on Facebook has said, oh yeah, we got this radio. They may just not have the listing up yet. And he's a big fan of it and says he likes it. So that's really weird to me because Jumper has been accused of cloning FreeSky's internal design. So when Jumper came out with the, I think it was the T12 or maybe it was the T8. I can't remember which. It was their first OpenTX radio. They came out with that, and there was a big kerfuffle saying they had copied the internals of the QX7. And now the T16, Trappy is kind of chortling with glee because he's like, because Trappy thinks that FlySky rips off Crossfire. So he's like, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, as no one says anymore, just me. You know, that if FlySky can rip off Crossfire, then along comes Jumper and they rip off FlySky, and I guess he likes it. So I'm not sure if he actually likes the radio or if he just likes the fact that Jumper is kind of putting their thumb in Fat Shark's face. But that's what I think about the T16. Haven't seen it yet. Can't speak to if it's any good. But Trappy says he likes it. And he wouldn't say he liked it if it was crap, even if he just thought it was funny. He would just say he thinks it's funny that Jumper is pissing off FlySky or FreeSky. But he actually says he thinks it's a decent radio. How about that? Okay. Let's see. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons, Glenn Corkery, why Trappy is anti-FreeSky. I'm not even talking about that. I'm not even going to, like, weigh in. Why would I do that on my own live stream? Talk about cloning. Never. The Philly 64 asks, planning a new build, Armatan Marmot or Chameleon? If you're using a micro camera, definitely the Marmot. I mean, there's a chance, like you're taking a little bit of a chance because the Marmot's a new frame and it's possible it has some issue, like the Rooster. When the Rooster first came out, nobody anticipated that the arms would be a little bit wobbly, and then for some people, the wobbly arms were a big freaking deal. So if you took a chance by buying the Rooster the day it came out, you might have been disappointed. I mean, I still think the Rooster's a good frame. I think the wobbly arms was a little bit overblown, but some people really cared about it, and they would have been really mad. Really mad. So when you buy the Marmot, there is a chance that it'll have something about it that you may not like, but overall, I think it's a good gamble. And if I was building with a micro frame today, I totally would use the Marmot. In fact, I ordered 2 Marmot frames today on the Race Day Quads pre-order, and in fact, hang on, or the Rotor Riot store pre-order, rather. Same thing. In fact, hang on. Here's the Rotor Riot store, and the reason I say they're the same thing is that in case you have been living under a rock, Rotor Riot, Race Day Quads bought partial ownership in Rotor Riot, and Race Day Quads is basically running the Rotor Riot store now. So it's essentially the same store, just Rotor Riot. It's like an affiliate code for Rotor Riot, more or less. And I actually bought 2 of these today because I want to be able to review them for you. And I'm just going to assume that my package got lost in the mail, because today on my freaking YouTube, I saw this. Hold on. I saw this on my freaking YouTube. I saw UAV Futures with an Armatan Marmot review. Apparently, UAV Futures. Oh, he had a Marmot 2 weeks ago testing it with Granger. Apparently, UAV Futures got a Marmot 2 weeks ago. I'm just going to assume that mine got lost in the mail, Armatan. Didn't send a Marmot to UAV Futures. Not me. Come on, Armatan. I thought we were bros. I thought you had my back. Damn it. So I ordered 2 of them today. They're coming in the mail, and I'm going to review them as soon as I get them. But I'm excited about them. Wow, Storm Westcott. What is your favorite frame other than the Chameleon? Wow, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Can I say the Chameleon TI? No. That's tough. I got to think about that. I got to think about that. No answer. What would make my FPV Greybush says, what would make my motors want to speed up right as I give it throttle? So FPV Greybush, the first thing I would ask you is, are you testing it with your props off? When the props are off and you just raise the throttle, the motors will often continue to speed up. I have a video about it, and basically what happens is that when the props are off, the quadcopter wants to try to level itself, and it can't because there's no props, so the motors just kind of get into a feedback loop. And they spin up. That's normal. If it's doing it when the props are on, it could be the same thing. The quad may throttle up a little bit, but if it kind of goes, that could be a runaway situation, like your board alignment or your motor direction is not correct. Those are some thoughts about that. Let me just jump over to the Discord. There's a few things going on in the Discord that I should definitely pay attention to. Junte asks, show us your logical variables settings on your radio for Crossfire. I'm still struggling with RSSI and getting constant reports. So Junte, here's what I suggest. Don't look at my radio. I mean, you could look at my radio, but what I suggest you do is right here, Oscar Leung. I'm going to paste this in the Discord. Boom. And I'm going to paste it real quick in the chat for anybody who's following along. Oscar Leung has a fantastic article about setting up RSSI in Crossfire, and it includes showing the the logical switches here and exactly how to set them up. This is exactly what you need to do. Nothing more, nothing less. So rather than show you mine, I'll show you his, and full credit to Oscar Leung for his excellent article. Monoman says, Stu got the... Monoman's not alone here. Stu got the new frame first because he only gives good reviews. I also almost always give good reviews of Armatan products. I don't think Armatan intentionally would send a product because they thought a reviewer was going to be favorable. Well, I think Armatan would not send a product if they thought a reviewer wasn't going to be favorable. In fact, the very first Armatan frame I reviewed was the Armatan... Oh, what's the name of it? Wow. I'm blanking on the name of it. It was this. It was a really fiddly frame with vertical side plates, and I had the hardest time putting it together. And I kind of expressed that frustration. And when I later went to Armitage and said, "Would you send me a chameleon for review?" He was like, "Listen, bro, no hard feelings, but you really slammed our last frame. So if you're gonna slam this one, I kind of don't. You could just buy one." I was like, I respect that. But I've always given positive reviews to Armitage stuff because they earn it, not because I'm a shill. Because they earn it. That guy, 7 Hat Guy, is that guy. You can't blame me. I mean, guys, you can't blame me. You can't blame me. Look, right here. 7 Hat Guy. That's just what his name is. I think I'm going to stick with it. What's your take on the TBS Evo? What's your recommendation for a long-range VTX? The TBS Evo, let's just pull that up real quick for those who are wondering. This is the TBS Evo. No, that's an exterior screw. Let's try again. Apparently there's another thing out there called the TBS Evo. It is a video transmitter. Whoa, big deal, right? Big whoop. Who cares? So one thing they've done that's interesting is they've mounted the UFL right here in the middle. I'm not sure why it's better or worse, but it is clever. I guess they also have a little retention here. So I guess that is pretty clever. I just now noticed that. So this looks like there's a little retention strap, and it means that you're not placing stress right here on the most vulnerable part of the UFL. That's really clever. They're also doing the same thing they've done on Unify HVs, where they strap it down with some screws and a little piece of brass, and I think that's super awesome, and it keeps the UFL from popping off. It's really great. But the real thing that the TBS Evo does that is novel is, I can't find a reference to this, but I'll just tell you about it. The VTX can process the video and look for QR codes in the video. So you can shine your camera at a certain QR code and it will change the channel and change the output power. So one thing people have talked about doing with the TBS Evo is at a race on each of the starting blocks, you could have a QR code right in front of the starting block. And then when you go to race, you just aim your aim your camera at it. And if you're using an Evo, it just switches you to the right channel for that position. That's super clever. I think the TBS Evo, TBS makes good quality hardware. There's every reason to believe it's a rock solid piece of kit, and it's got this neato feature. So yeah, I love it. Recommendation for a long range VTX. The thing is, that guy with long range, I mean, if you've got just 600 milliwatts with a good quality antenna and a good receiver, you can go really far. So going from like 600 to 800 or 1,000 milliwatts is not mandatory for long range. What you really want to do is you want to find a VTX that outputs a lot of power and actually outputs it and holds it. So like I tested the Race Day Quads Mach 3, and the Race Day Quads Mach 3 is rated for 1 watt, and it does in fact make 1 watt as long as you're using channel Race 2 or whatever. But all the other channels are significantly less than 1 watt. So what I would recommend if you really want to do long range is that you get an Immersion RC RF power meter so you can test your VTXs and find out which ones are actually putting out the most power on what channel. Unfortunately, there's no universal recommendation there. I am testing more VTXs and hope to build up a larger body of evidence. So far, the most consistent VTX I've tested has been the Rush, the Underground FPV Rush Tank VTX. It didn't put out the most power, but it was pretty consistent across all channels, and I respect that. I just got in the mail some TBS VTXs to test, and hopefully we'll be testing those. Still haven't done it yet, though. Alrighty. Let's see here. Wow. We got a lot of chats coming in. Folks in the chat, I am sorry I cannot possibly get to every single one. I will be taking questions from the chat as I can. I try and be about 50-50 at least. But as they're going by, what can we do? Let me get some of these super chats. There's a few super chats coming in. I definitely got to get them. Do you recommend the Fat Shark HDO? Say hi to Brazil. Hello, Brazil. I'm trying to think of something to say in Portuguese. I don't really know. Yeah, Fat Shark HDO. I mean, if you have $500 to spend on a goggle, the Fat Shark HDO is a fantastic goggle. When it first came out, I was a little bit disappointed that it wasn't more revolution. I was hoping, I heard Fat Shark HDO OLED screen, and I was like, whoa! And I really expected just to smack me in the face. And when I put it on, I was like, this is good, but I expected more, so I was a little bit underwhelmed by it. But there's no doubt that the HDO is one of the best, if not the best, goggle you can get for FPV if you have $500 to spend. Rocketman says the screens are too small for me. The screens are smaller than some people would prefer. That's why Fat Shark released the Terminator HD2 goggle, a reissue of the Fat Shark HD2 with a big 50-degree field of view. That's why they released that. So if you want a giant screen, get the Terminator HD2 and save $100 over the HDO. You can also get the HD3. I think for me, if you just aren't sure, the HD3 is the sweet spot in the Fat Shark line. The screen is a little smaller than the HD2, so you're not likely to have blurry edges. It's bigger than the HDO, so you're likely to have a nice big screen that you can really be impressed by, and it's $100 cheaper than the HDO. So hey, if you kind of don't like it, you didn't spend as much. That's what I would say. I used to speak a tiny bit of Portuguese, MC's Creations. When I was in college, one of the things I enjoyed doing was capoeira. I know that many people who know what capoeira is are having trouble picturing me, but when I was 20, I was a lot thinner and more athletic, and I did capoeira for a while, and I learned some Portuguese as part of that. I actually went to Brazil once and did a capoeira conference in Brazil. So I've been to Rio, and once upon a time could have said hi in Portuguese, but now I've just embarrassed myself. Bumblebold FPV says, I overheated my VTX. It came back, but I can't get out very far ever since. Do VTXs underclock themselves to stay cool? Maybe I fried it. Bumblebolt, the VTXs typically will reduce power as they heat up to protect themselves. The main way that you can damage them is by running them with the antenna off. Running the VTX without airflow so it heats up. I mean, if you did that for a long time, maybe it would be damaged. At the end of the day, the fact that you did this weird thing and now it has no range kind of suggests you might have damaged it. This is another chance for me to plug the Immersion RC RF power meter. I know I'm plugging this thing a lot lately, but the thing is, FPV video is so important, and it's such a freaking mystery. So, like, what's going on? Do I have output power? And this answers the question. Okay, it's $100. That sucks. Not everybody is going to be able to pay $100 for it. But if you are a member of like a multi-GP chapter, and you can get the members of the chapter to chip in $5 a piece or $10 a piece, so the chapter organizer can bring this to a race day, it's so worth having, because you're like, I don't know, if my VTX broken, this will tell you if your VTX is broken, and otherwise it's really just guesswork. Okay, let's see here. Still going through the super chats. Adam Weaver, so thank you, Adam, for $10. That's very generous. Thank you. Adam Weaver says, I made a suggestion to Rotor Riot to make battery straps with their logo and our personal FAA number on it. Do you think it's a good idea? Maybe they'll do it. I want them. That's a clever idea, Adam. Would they print the FAA number on it? Or would they, I mean, could you get a battery strap with like just like a white section that you could write your FAA number on with like a Sharpie? Because I think if you had to print them, that would probably be prohibitive. You can't just, I mean, the benefit of battery straps is that you just make 1,000 of them and they cost 5 cents a piece, and then you give them away. So I think it's an interesting idea, Adam Weaver. But the question I have is that legal? Because I thought I heard something about a change in where you have to put the FAA number on the quad recently. I don't know. Anyway, Feel the Need. Thank you. Feel the Need gives pounds sterling, and says, please visit the UK soon. We'd love to see you. Thank you. Woosan gives $5 and says, I put 1750 kV motors on the Bardwell budget build with a 6S battery. Would you change the props? Which props would you suggest to try? Smooth, freestyle, not race. With 1750 kV 6S, I mean, I still think that 5043 is a great place for freestyle, even on 6S. With a little bit more torque on the 6S motors, you may want to go up maybe to 5045. At the end of the day, let the flight characteristics dictate whether the prop is right for the setup. But in general, a 1700-ish kV 6S build will use about the same props as a 2400-ish kV 4S build, more or less. You may be able to go a little more aggressive with 6S, but in general, it's about the same. One of the questions Teflon asks a question in the Discord and says, what is iTerm Relax? And UAV Tech, Mark Spatz, helpfully answers, and I'll just share that answer with everybody. In Betaflight, the iTerm Relax feature deals with something called iTerm Windup. iTerm Windup happens when the quad is moving very rapidly and the iTerm builds up an accumulation of error. And then the iTerm will try to undo that error later after. Here's a great example, a metaphor for iTerm Relax. You get home, you're kind of drunk, you don't really remember what happened, and your girlfriend is super mad at you. And you say some things, you don't really remember what you said, but when you wake up the next morning, she is pissed. And you're like, what do you mean? I feel great. That's iTerm Windup. The problem that was happening, you could have, it's too late to fix it. The mistakes have been made. It's the next morning, let's just move on. And that's what iTerm Relax is. iTerm Relax, when the quad is moving very rapidly and iTerm Windup would happen, the quad just, the flight controller says, iTerm, just stop. Just plug your ears. Don't listen. You're not going to like what's happening here. That's iTerm Relax. Let's get back to the regular chat. We got some Discord. We got some Super Chat. Let's get back to the regular chat. And let's see. Jeff Roca says, you should do beers with Bardwell. Yeah, Botgrinder's really got the beers thing down. I can't mess with Botgrinder. He does Botgrinder so well. If I tried to do Botgrinder, I would just look terrible in comparison. Who do you think is Storm Westcott. Oh, I'm so glad you asked this, Storm Westcott. Who do you think is a better racer? Captain Flamethrower, that's Alex Vanover, or Heads Up FPV, that's Evan Turner. Now, I have to acknowledge that Evan Turner lives in Knoxville, about 45 minutes from me. He is my hometown boy, so I'm biased. But I also have to acknowledge that Vanover is a Hype Train sponsored pilot, and it kind of appears in Rotor Riot, which I also do, so I'm biased that direction too. Here's what I would say. I think that Evan is probably faster than Vanover. In other words, if you took Vanover and Evan and you let them each fly all day on a track, I think Evan would have the fastest single lap every single time. But I think that Vanover wins more races because he is a more mature racer and he is more sort of well-rounded and polished. Vanover has the ability to kind of lay back if he needs to. Whereas Evan could be 4 seconds ahead of the whole field. And most people would go, okay, I got this one. I'm going to slow down a little. And Evan will try to be 5 seconds ahead. And then sometimes he crashes out. It's like, well, why didn't you just finish? But he just only has one speed and it's all out. That being said, Evan I think he has started to really, well, mature is the right word, as a racer and because he started winning some titles. He just went to Phoenix last weekend. Did he win in Phoenix? Does anybody know in the chat, did Evan win in Phoenix? Yeah. Chris Quad says Thomas Bitamata is faster than both of them. I'm not sure about that. Chris Quad, I've always thought of, not to take anything away from Thomas, who is hella fast, but I've always thought of Thomas as another example of a racer who is not as pure speed, but again, is like Thomas races at a relatively low up tilt. To tell you something, Evan used to race, I don't know if he still does, at like 70 degrees of up tilt. Maybe that's the reason he doesn't slow down. He can't slow down. Whereas Thomas races at like 45 degrees and he just gets it done. I would agree that Minshan is faster. I would argue that Minshan is probably the fastest pilot overall in the world today. Yeah. I would say so. Min Chan is fast as hell. He's fast as hell. So, I'm curious if anybody knows. I know that Evan went to Phoenix and raced in the Phoenix Cup. I don't know if he beat Vanover or not, or if Vanover was even there. ABMS Production, you're talking about Milk FPV. That's the Furious FPV sponsored pilot, right? I would be curious, has Milk won any titles? Like, where is she in terms of leaderboards? Because I've seen video of her flying super fast, but I'm not sure how she actually does in real races. So I'd be curious about that. Jugsy, yeah. The other thing is that, speaking of Alex and Min Chan, so Vanover is currently, I joked in my vlog that Vanover was the Korean national champion, but it's actually true. Vanover raced on the Korean national team, even though he is not a Korean. You don't have to actually be Korean to race on the Korean national team. And he actually, he was going to race against Min Chan in the finals, and Min Chan withdrew because of a technical issue. Take of that what you will. So Vanover, I don't think he's ever actually beat Min Chan in a race officially, but he is technically the Korean national champion, I think. So, something to be said. Skycam Production, thank you for the $10 contribution. Thank you so much. That's amazing. Oh, I can't believe you guys throwing these donations at me. Let's see. What are your thoughts on VTX DVR over camera DVR? I'm not sure I understand that question, Jay. I'm intrigued by your question, but I don't actually think I understand it. So, yeah. Let's see. That guy talking about TrueDX. I hope to be testing the TrueDX this weekend if the weather contributes. I'm waiting for my Owl RC module to come in the mail so I can test against it. Robbie FPV. I will not stop ignoring you, Robbie FPV. I will not acknowledge your questions or your comments. So, see, I just did, though. I just acknowledged you. Let's see here. Yeah, Mark Spatz is in the Discord talking about iTerm Relax. The real question I have for you, Mark, is there any reason not to just turn it on? I mean, Mark is saying if you don't have bounce back at the end of flips and rolls, leave iTerm Relax off. But what about the argument, just turn it on, leave it on? Does it hurt to have it on? I don't know. Andrew Mitchell, what do you think is the best battery for the Tyrannus QX7? Well, what I like is this. Hold on. Check this out. This looks pretty good to me. It is I think it's a 3D printed case. I'm not 100% sure about this, but it is an 18650 adapter for the QX7, and that to me seems like a great idea. If I was looking for a battery, I think that, yeah, Race Day Quad sells a QX7 battery, and I mean, I would feel pretty good about that, right? I mean, just because it's probably not garbage, and it's $15 and it's a LiPo, so yeah, go for it. That's probably what I would do. Taplow in the super chat asks, I think the HDO comes with the 18650 case. How do you charge them? Which charger in that case or each cell individual? What Taplow is talking about is, nope, this one. Taplow is talking about the 18650 case. That's this Fat Shark battery case into which you insert 18650 lithium cells. That is not what the HDO comes with. The HDO comes with this case, which looks very similar. You can see that it is a little bit smaller, and this is just a 2-cell battery. This actually comes with it's a little hard for you to see it because of the focus, but you just plug in a USB plug right here, and that's how you charge it. I'm 99% sure you can charge it through the barrel plug, but I don't. I just plug in USB and I let it charge itself. Now, if you are using the 18650 case, you can actually see back, there we go, hold on, right there, back on the wall, that is an 186, it's a 4-bay 18650 charger, and that's what I use to charge them. You don't charge them inside the case. That's not what it's made for. You take them out, you charge them, and that's kind of the whole point. Storm Westcott, Orca FPV goggles versus HDO. That's like asking pink unicorns versus HDO. Who would win? It doesn't exist yet. The Orca is not a product. It's a prototype. It's an idea in the minds of some very promising young men. And I hope that that idea becomes real. But until there is an actual product for me to test or you to buy, doesn't matter. The specs on the Orca are very impressive. There's a long, long way between specs and a prototype and an actual product you can buy. And until you have the latter, you can't say who's better. Yo-Yo Wiz gives $5 and asks, great stuff, always so interesting. Any controllers that are like the TBS Tango with a built-in screen? Are there any other controllers that have a built-in screen other than the Tango? I don't think so. The Tango is the only one I can think of. Let's see here. Wow. Zigad Faja asks, oh, Zigad Faja, like the Godfather. I see, only because of his user icon. In the Discord, Zigad Faja asks, Fat Shark with rapid fire is set to channel 4, while my drone is transmitting on channel 7. If I turn on my other Fat Shark, it connects on channel 6. What might be the issue? The issue is that don't use auto search. Just set your goggle on the channel that your transmitter is on. Auto search doesn't work reliably. Even on an amazing module like the rapid fire, auto search is not reliable. Just don't. You may be experiencing something called intermodulation distortion, but intermodulation distortion actually requires 3 transmitters, I'm pretty sure, so that can't be it. Anyway, there you go. Wow, already. Well, we're only 40 minutes in and I'm already done. Well, there you go. Ethan Johnson asks, are you going to review the Mobula 7 HD? You mean this one? This Mobula 7 HD? Right here? Am I going to review this? No. I don't think so. Joe Krupe asks, thoughts on how we could create a VR overlay in goggle that puts a virtual track in your goggles that you could use in a wide open field. Joe, it's funny that you ask that. Hang on. It's funny that you ask that because I would like to show you this. No, not this. Really? Why did we go back to this? It's a joke. Here we go. This is Epson Moverio augmented reality smart glasses. And one of the things that they do is, hang on. I gotta find, oh, where is it? Hold on one second. Yeah. We got any drone footage in here? Here we go. No. Where is it? They're not going to show it. So one of the things that these goggles do... Nope. Okay. Well, forget it. That was a waste of time. One of the things that these goggles can do is build a track in the goggles that you can fly the drone through. However, the limitation is that it only works with drones that have GPS position sensing and Wi-Fi connection to your phone and stuff. What happens is if you have a Mavic, then based on the Mavic's GPS position, it can put an augmented reality track in the goggles. And they actually reached out to me, this was over a year ago, and they wanted me to review the Movero goggles. as an FPV goggle, and I asked him all kinds of questions, and it just doesn't work with an FPV drone because it doesn't have position reporting. It doesn't have the ability to tell the goggles where the drone is. So it is something that people have done, but it's not something that can be done with the typical FPV drone. Kyle Neeson asks, any suggestions on selling my quad? People don't seem too interested in it. Kyle, whenever I need to sell a quad, which doesn't happen that often, but whenever I do, I go to RC groups and I go to the classifieds. Here they are. I go to the classifieds and multi-rotors. And you could actually just sell it right here. So I use the RC Group's classifieds whenever I need to sell something, and it's always worked pretty well for me. Let's see here. ArchmayJU asks, what would be the best setup guide that includes a guide for initial settings for tuning for setting up the RPM filter? I'm looking at setting this up on my race quads. Archmage, I would go to the Betaflight wiki. And the wiki has Sugarcase tuning guide. The Betaflight RPM wiki is the one I would suggest to use. I mean, nobody knows better than the devs themselves today. Let's see here. What else have we got? Let's look for some questions here. Reddit RC Classifieds. Mike Cadup. I've never used RC Classifieds on Reddit, but maybe I should. I'm not really familiar with them. Is there an HD FPV camera board with a built-in VTX? No, I don't think so. All of the HD FPV cameras have they just act like standard cameras and output to an external VTX. The problem, Temal, is the more stuff you put on one board, the easier it is to break. So it's already asking a lot to put a high-def camera and DVR on a single board. So the drone bloke wants to know, would it be possible to determine the frequency of frame resonance and cancel it out of the FC? What would be the best way? I mean, you can like tap it with a tuning fork or something, right? You can flick it and see what frequency it responds at. I'm not sure about that. That's interesting. Scotian FPV, I am terrible at line of sight also. I cannot maintain orientation to save my life. So. Mari77 says, I've soldered my antenna back on the B-Brain light, but RSSI still moves between 40 and 60 even nearby. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Mari, I don't know what you're doing wrong. I had a similar situation. After breaking the antenna on my B-Brain, I soldered a new one back on, and my RSSI was never the same again. This is actually one I think the receiver is one of the weakest parts of the B-Brain. I constantly, even when I have a new board, I get, even on 25 milliwatts, I have longer video range than RSSI, and it really frustrates me. When you look at some of the quads, like some of the beta FPV quads or the Mobula or the Trash Can, which can be ordered with an external antenna receiver like a QX, like a XM Plus rather, I'm really tempted by those because the built-in antenna on the B-Brain is, I mean, even if they just put a UFL connector or something on it, but at least then you could change the antenna without having to solder it on. Unfortunately, Mari, I mean, it's certainly possible that the antenna is not soldered on right. It is very, very fiddly soldering, but it's possible that something is just damaged and it's not working right. It's so frustrating to me. It was so frustrating to me when that happened to me, and I just never really solved it. Let's see here. Do you know anything about this 4K resolution split-style camera Cadix is proposing, where they claim to have less than 10 milliseconds latency? Nope. No, I don't, Chris Quad. That camera, it was a split-style camera that records in 4K. The thing is, 4K... I mean, if you don't have a decent bit rate and a good quality sensor, the fact that you're recording in 4K is just marketing BS. And I mean, there are some cameras from relatively reputable manufacturers that record in 4K and don't do a good job of it. Gosh, even the GoPro Hero Session doesn't do great in 4K. It just doesn't allocate the bit rate that 4K really needs. So when you say that Caddx is coming out with a camera that records in 4K, I'm like, I'm just not that impressed. I wonder if it's going to look very good at all. The fact that it's in 4K just gets you excited about marketing, but it doesn't necessarily mean the video is going to look better. I would much rather have 2.7K at 35 megabits per second than 4K at 50 megabits per second. You know what I mean? Did that make sense? You see what I mean? Anyway. Let's see here. Marcos Huerta gives $10. Wow, you guys are killing it. I'm going to keep live streaming if you guys keep donating like this. This is amazing. Marcos Huerta gives $10 and says, I was able to build my first quad after a month of getting into the hobby because of your amazing content. It runs great. Smart port telemetry, OSD, everything. No questions. Just keep it up. Thank you. Marcos Huerta, you gave me $10 and I'll be giving you that $10 right back for the comment that I wrote for you. That was amazing. What a great comment. Thank you. Let's see what we got here. Did I check out Bot Grinder's new band? I did not. I did not. That scares me a little bit, to be honest with you. Controller Man Dan wants to know, how does one FPV in bad weather? In my crappy country, it always rains. The number one thing I would say, Controller Man Dan, is that you need to have conformal coating all over your quad to keep that water from shorting it out and damaging it. The other problem that you have to solve is, if you're going to fly in a little bit of mist, how do you keep the rain off your lens? And unfortunately, no, you can't just go to the auto parts store and buy some Rain X. It doesn't really work. I don't have an answer for you about that, to be honest. You just really can't fly in the rain. It gets on the lens. At least I don't have a good solution. I did see somebody who literally made a little 3D printed wiper, which would go, it was controlled by a servo, and it would go and wipe the freaking lens. I'm not joking. Someone made that. So I think that most people aren't going to go to that extent. PHP FPV. Oh, man, we're going to do this on the live stream, aren't we, PHP? PHP FPV says, I hooked up the FSIA-6B according to the diagram you showed. Still not able to get motors to respond to transmitter. Okay, so the next thing to do, don't worry about the motors. You've skipped a step ahead. The next thing you need to do is verify in the receiver tab that the channels are moving. That will tell you that the flight controller is talking to the receiver. That's the next thing to do. Once you got your receiver channels moving, then you set up your arming mode, and then you test the motors. That's the order it goes in. And if you are interested in more information about this, can I show you that? No. Why? No. My keystrokes that I'm using to switch scenes are messing up all my other windows. Can I show you guys this? This is my Learn to Build a Quadcopter, a racing drone playlist, and I'll link it in the chat. And even if you are not building this exact drone, can I suggest, if you're doing your first build, that you start here at part 10, which goes through all of the setup steps that I do when I build a quad. So even if you're not building this exact drone, you're going to need to bind your receiver, you're going to need to set your endpoints in your channel map, set up your arming mode, make the motor spin the right direction. You're going to need to do all these steps. And this is useful because even if you're not building this exact same drone, it's a primer on the things that you do need to do and the order you should do them in. That's what I would say. Devil Dog Saga gives, wow, Devil Dog, thank you, $10. Gives $10 and says, I watched your Betaflight 4.0 build, Betaflight 4.0 video, but is it the same as the 4.0 RC in Betaflight right now? Do I need to do the same copy and paste for the RPM notch like you did? Devil Dog, the release candidate it may be a little bit different than what you saw me do, but the wiki is usually up to date. So I would go to the wiki and I would follow the steps. One thing that is definitely worth pointing out, and Mark Spatz, UAV Tech, is also pointing this out in the Discord at this exact same minute, is that the Sugar K tuning guide on the wiki, Sugar K is the person, by the way. Sugar K's guide is for a really clean quad and is aggressive. So you need, if you are going to follow that tuning guide, take one step at a time. Do one step, fly it. Do the next step, fly it. Don't just go through all the steps because you may smoke a motor. But the wiki is almost always kept up to date with the Betaflight releases and is safe to follow. Don't use Skycam. I don't recommend using WD-40. WD-40 is good for some things, but I don't think I would suggest putting it on the quad. I don't know. Maybe you know something I don't. Steve Riedling gives $10. Thank you, Steve. Wow, $10. These $10 donations are driving me crazy. This is amazing. Says, I've been flying since the blackout and David's tricopter with the KK2. No time to research as much as I used to. What flight controller and 4-in-1 ESC do you suggest? My Raging Droner 6S with race focus. For racing, a lot of racers do really love the Flight 1 Revolt flight controller and the ESC that goes with it. Alex Vanover was out in Orlando and was flying them. And there's just no doubt that that small flight controller and that ESC on 6S, a lot of racers really enjoy them. Pardon me. Another one that racers really seem to like if you're going to run Betaflight is the Pyrodrone Pyro F4, and Pyrodrone has an ESC that goes with it. Again, the advantage of the Pyrodrone gear is that it is absolutely race tested. Pyro has a very active racing team, and those guys, I had a little bit of an argument with Serge, the owner of Pyrodrone, a little while back, where he said, here's this ESC. He said, Joshua, you're selling your ESC for $50, and here's this ESC that's very similar, and it's only $35. You're ripping people off. And I said, Serge, that ESC you're selling for $35, it's only 4S rated. Mine is rated for 6S. Mine has bigger FETs. They're not the same ESC. That's why mine costs more. And he said, listen, dude, I have been running this 4S ESC on 6S with my racing team. It's fine. And I was like, well, you got me there. If Serge says they race that ESC on 6S, you can take that to the bank. So for racing, Pyrodrone F4 and whatever ESC Pyrodrone is selling to go with it, if you're running Betaflight, or if you want to go Flight 1, the Flight 1 Revolt and the Flight 1 ESC, both really good choices for racing. If you are actually, Steve, if you are really inexperienced and not up to speed, I can double down on Flight 1, because Flight 1 has a setup wizard that makes setting up the quad, when it works, and it usually works, doesn't work 100% of the time, but when it works, and it usually works, the Flight 1 setup wizard makes setting up a quad so much, you can have a quad ready to fly in like 10 minutes. Not the building part, but the setup part. So that would be my recommendation. Who's saying in the chat that Orca is dead? What do you know that I don't know? Because I was just emailing with the Orca guys about a thing that we might be doing at some point in the future, and they didn't mention Orca being dead. So if they're dead, I would want to know. Triggertown Hero Vincent G asks, how do I get chicks with FPV? Well, step 1, grow a mustache, and step 2, get a Miata. Recipe for success. All right, guys. I don't know why people are saying Orca is dead in the chat, but I am going to make Orca a banned word in the chat. So take it easy. You're just spamming the chat with Orca is dead. It's becoming a meme. Let's all talk about potatoes. Somebody asked me, what antennas are you running on your goggles right now? Okay. Where's my goggles? Okay, none. Where's my antenna? There we go. Okay. Get back here. The antenna that I have on my goggles right this minute is the Strix Hoot from Ready Made RC and the the Foxeer Lollipop. Those are the ones I'm running right this minute. I'm always trying. People are like, okay, those are the best. Well, I'm always trying different things. I'm specifically trying the Lollipop because I want to test having two Omnis on the rapid fire. I used to run the Lumineer Axie patch on here, but I want to test two Omnis. And since you're probably going to ask, yes, it's going pretty good. I haven't felt the need to put the patch back on really since I started doing this, so I do recommend it. But I'm using the Lollipop mostly because it was the only stubby that I had around. It seems to be doing pretty good for me, but I'm not, it's not like a rigorous test. I do really like the Strix, especially on the quad, because this coax is like just flexible enough to not break, but also stiff enough. I don't know. I think it's a really good, well-designed antenna. Tyler Lamb, I didn't miss your super chat. I just hadn't gotten to it yet. Tyler Lamb gives $2 and asks, r/multicopters build advice, u/critical error. That's not actually a question, Tyler. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused by your question. I guess I'm supposed to go to r/multicopters. Okay, hang on. Let's see if we can figure out what Tyler Lamb is asking. Build advice. Critical error. u/critical error. Nope. I don't know, Tyler. I don't know what you're asking me, my friend. You're gonna have to help me out. Yeah, Gapit, Steel bought a Miata, and I was so confused by that. So you guys probably know that Steel has this STI that he put it in his vlog. It's not a secret. Tricking out the turbo system on this STI. He's got this super tricked out WRX STI, just a badass car. And then he comes to dinner one night, and I'm in Atlanta. We get together. Not Steel and me. We don't get together. I didn't mean it like that. Who was I out with? It was the Rotor Riot guys, I guess, or maybe Stingy. Anyway, Steel came out, and he shows up in this Miata. I'm like, why did he buy a Miata? I mean, the guy can buy whatever car he likes. Don't get me wrong, but if you like a WRX, it's just so odd to me that the same guy who like turboed out a WRX STI would then buy a Miata. Like, those just feel like they should be two separate people. Anyway, there you go. And now, yeah, now he bought an Elise, except it's not an Elise, is it? It's a Lotus Random Moon FPV, but it's not the Elise, it's another one. And I'm extra confused because a Lotus Elise is basically like a Miata. It's a tiny track car that you never would want to drive around town, right? It's just so impractical. So if you were gonna buy a Lotus, why did you buy a Miata? Why didn't you just buy the Lotus? He's an enigma, that guy. He's an enigma. I like Miatas, don't get me wrong. But MC's Creations, I also would rather get a Mustang 10,000 times better. 10,000 times better. Daniel Hafner, I am a guy with a Mustang, but I'm a guy with a 4-cylinder Mustang. So, in some ways, that's worse than a Miata. Like, at least a Miata is what it is. No, I'm teasing. The Drone Bloke asks, my mate's Spectrum receiver just burst into flame after landing. Just the receiver. What the hell could have happened? I'm going to guess a short circuit. I'm afraid that without the NTSB getting involved, I can't give you more information than that. Oh. Viper FPV, here's why it's a 4-cylinder. Now, first of all, it's a 4-cylinder turbo. It gets 310 horsepower. I mean, I always feel like I'm making excuses for my car, and I shouldn't have to. It's my car. I bought it because I like it. It's a 4-cylinder, but it makes more horsepower than the V6 did in the last year that they made the V6. So it's not like it's a slouch of a car, okay? But the V8 is awesome. It's an awesome car. It sounds amazing. It's so expensive to own, though. Like, I was like, I already feel like I'm splurging just buying the car, to then I just could not bring myself to pay. Literally, it cost 10 grand more to get the GT than the car I got. Just 10 grand more to get 150 more horsepower. Okay, that's a lot. And 11 miles to the gallon around town. I was just like, forget it. I can't do it. That's why I got it. So I like it. I occasionally do think, I should have gotten the... Thank you, JRB. The 4.6V... What year was that, JRB? It's been a long time since a V8 Mustang made 310 horsepower. And yeah, Mongo FPV, you can tune the EcoBoost Mustang to make easily 350, maybe 400 horsepower. I'm not sure I'm going to do that because I'm not sure. I think my car already sounds enough like a Honda Civic. If I were to like tune it up and just turn it into a Honda Civic, I feel it's never going to sound like a V8, but I'm not sure I want to just crank it to 400 horsepower, but I like it. I like it. It really it's a nice car. I like it. Anyway, moving on. Not talking about far. Yeah, right, Billy Presley. I drove to Orlando in that car, and I got 27 miles to the gallon the whole way. Yeah, that's not going to happen in a V8. That's for sure. Yep, that's me. I'm an enigma. I'm the kind. See, I'm complaining about Steele owning an STI and buying a Miata, and I buy a Mustang and then brag about the gas mileage. So I guess I'm also full of contradictions. Moving on. Multicopter builds. Okay. r/multicopter builds. I'm trying. This is the hardest I've ever worked for a $2 super chat. r/multicopter builds. Okay. And critical error build advice. I found it. I found it. Okay. Critical error wants some build advice. And let's see. What do we got here? Eachine EV800D. Great budget goggle. Recommend. Tyrannus QX7, great budget radio, recommend. Flight controller, Maytech F405 CTR. That had problems with the gyro and electrical noise. I don't know if they ever fixed it, but all in all, I would steer away from it on the chance that they never fixed it. So I don't love that FC. Lumineer 30 amp D-Shot Opto, not bad, probably overpriced. Hang on. Sorry, Get FPV. I think they have a Xylo ESC that I would recommend. Let's see. Lumineer 30 amp ESC. Yeah, oh, yeah. No. D-Shot Opto. Which one is it? You're talking about this one. This is BL Heli S. That's not bad for 13 bucks. That's not bad for 13 bucks, I guess. That's not the one I would get, though. Let's see. That's also BL Heli S. I would really want BL Heli 32 today. I got to tell you. Things like adjustable PWM frequency can really help you out sometimes. But you're saving a lot of money. Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Okay, that's a fine ESC. Okay, at that price, it's a fine ESC. Lumineer 2206, 2450 kV motors. Those are good motors. I think they're a little dated, though. Yeah, so I think for 18 bucks, you can do a lot better. This was a great motor 2 years ago. Today, I think it's not like a Rockstar motor. Like, for example... Check this out. This is where I would go. 3B Hobby 2207 2650. This is a killer motor for 20 bucks. This is a really killer motor for 20 bucks. I would buy this is on my ultimate FPV shopping list, which is, in case you didn't know, take a minute to plug it. It's fpvknowitall.com, and you go to the ultimate FPV shopping list where I have all my product recommendations. So if we look in the quadcopter parts and we go to motors, you can see the motors that I recommend for 4S. And right here is the 3B Hobby 2207. I think I list this as a racing motor, but there's no such thing really as a racing motor. It's a great motor for freestyle as well. And I recommend it at a price of about 20 bucks. Let's keep going through this list. Dow Cyclone T5040, super underpropped. Well, maybe for the 2206 it would be a decent fit, but probably underpropped for most motors today. I would be looking at a 5043 or maybe even a 5045. I don't think Dow makes a 5043. So if you really want to go budget and get Dow, then T5040 is okay. The problem with the T5040 Cyclone props is that they break off at the hub super easily. So if you end up in a tree and you have to turtle out, you're going to just shatter all your props, and then you're going to be stuck in a tree. So I would probably steer towards something else. The Dow 5045 is okay, especially if you get that 3B motor I told you to get. Unify Pro V3, that's fine, but you have to make sure that your flight controller has a 5-volt output that's going to be able to handle the Unify Pro. Otherwise, you need to get the Unify HV. Holybro Micro M8N. Make sure you don't get the one with the compass. You don't need it if you're running Betaflight. Just get the regular one without the compass. It's a few bucks cheaper. V-Fly Finder V2, love it. CNHL 1300 is a really solid choice. Probably I would go for a 1500 for slightly longer flight time. It's only a few grams heavier, but that's neither here nor there. That's your call. Scott IMAX B6AC. I'm not sure the B6AC is... Let me look what I recommend on my shopping list. B6AC is okay, but I think you could do better for the money today. In fact, I think I recently pulled the B6AC off my shopping list. Nope, there it is. There's the B6. Now you want the B6AC. You want something with a built-in AC adapter. You said you already... Actually, no, you said you already have the power supply. So if you have the power supply, you want the B6, not the B6AC. But personally, I would get like the ISDT Q6, or if you want something with AC adapter, well, it's way more expensive, but the HobbyMate D6 Duo is amazing. How much is the B6AC? I think it's like 60 bucks or something. Come on, what are you doing? 50 bucks. Yeah, okay, so there you go. Okay, there's your build advice. Oh, Cam Foxeer Mix. I would hesitate on the Foxeer Mix. The Foxeer Mix is a combined HD and FPV camera like the Runcam Split and the Caddx Turtle. Those cameras, every so often, one of them comes out and it has some horrible problem that seems like they just are a little bit cursed. So I would the Foxeer Mix is brand new. Foxeer has only just come out with it, and I would really not buy the first generation of one of these cameras. So I would lean toward the Caddx Turtle or the Runcam Split V2. If only because the problems with them have already been discovered and fixed, hopefully. There you go. Okay, there you go. That is a little rundown of that build. Hopefully you guys thought that was pretty useful. Daniel Hafner. Did you get it, Daniel? Did you see what I was shilling today? Don't be a hater, Daniel. This chat is only for JB fans. It's only for JB fans, guys. Anybody who's not a JB fan. Oh, ouch. Let's see here. Andy, very interesting question. Andy, Japan races are still limited to 4S. Most use 1,800, now 2,000 milliamp hour lipos. How are the quads that heavy, Andy? How do they get decent? You know, that seems so heavy. Brother Hobby has a 2207 3400 kV. No. That can't be right, Andy. You can't run 3400 kV on 4S, can you? That's insane. I mean, I guess some people run like 2400 kV on 5S or 6S, so maybe that's pretty close to the RPM of 3400 kV on. But that's Andy, I don't even know how to recommend. You're asking me these questions and you're in a different world than I'm even used to, because you're using an 1800 or 2000 milliamp hour battery with a 3400 kV motor. I don't even know what to do with that. I'm afraid I can't help you. There you go. Worst Person View asks, why is the Bardwell FC not listed as your FC on the Rotor Riot Pilot Gear site? I don't know about that. Hang on. Let's look. So if we go here, where's the Pilot Gear? Pilot Setups. Oh, come on. There we go. Pilot Setups. Do I have? Really? Did I not get there? Oh my God. Your menu is so annoying. Here we go. Where am I? There I am. Oh, that's a good picture of me. That's a good picture of me. Oh, I see why. Why is my... yeah, it should really be there, shouldn't it? This is the gear from my build, from my freestyle build. When I did my ultimate freestyle build, I didn't actually put my flight controller in it. To what's his name, who was accusing me of shilling. Makes sense out of that. I didn't put my flight controller in it because I wanted my freestyle build to be sort of premium in every way, and I wanted it to have an F7 processor, and the JB F7 doesn't exist yet. So because I wanted a top-end flight controller in it, I didn't put my own flight controller in it, and that's why it's not listed as my... But it should really be there. It should really be there. So let's just hit up Mr. Orta. Hang on. Let's see here. There we go. Jeff will add it. Andrew Rice asks, is the TBS Unify worth the price difference over the Mach 3 race day quads? The Mach 3 is very all over the place on how much output power it outputs on different channels. I haven't tested the Unify yet, but in the past they've been a little more consistent. So the big difference for me between the Mach 3 and the Unify is that the Mach 3 is so much thicker than the Unify because it's got an LED screen, and the Unify is much easier to get into tight builds. With a little bit of height, you can even get the Unify in between your ESC and your flight controller if you really need to. The Mach 3 is so much bigger that's a big difference for me. IV asks, are Evan Turner, Vanover, Nurk, etc. racing spec class or open class? Those guys are racing open class. Yeah, they don't race spec class as far as I know. Over here in the Discord, Archmage AU, I talked about the TBS Unify Evo a little earlier in the stream, so I'm going to skip your question, and you can watch the DVR if you want to, but I do acknowledge your question. Broke Mechanic, you're late on the stream. Sorry, it's get here on time next time, Broke Mechanic, or you're fired? No, it's no big deal, man. Suicide Kings asks, hey, Bardwell, just got your parallel board. Whenever I plug a battery in it, it immediately starts running through the voltages up to number 4, but then it just reads all. Yeah, no, it's not reading it's reading the cells, Suicide Kings. Pardon me. It's reading the cells. Cell 1, 2, 3, 4, and then all cell voltage. Suicide Kings. That's what's going on. So that guy asks, regarding the TS100, should I put a different firmware than stock on it? What are you running? Well, it's funny you ask that. Because... What? Yes. Who's this guy? Oh my god, his camera is so out of focus. Focus? Look at that. Wow, so bad. Focus your camera. I have a video on how to put the RALIM firmware on there. This is what I'm running, and I do recommend it. The big thing that the RALIM firmware gets you is it ups your output temperature from 400 to 450 Celsius, which I think is a good deal. But it has a few other improvements as well. The Drone Bloke says, my frame resonance is 523 hertz. What's the best way to cancel that out? I guess a notch filter, Drone Bloke, but I would verify with Blackbox that, in fact, you're seeing resonance at that frequency. Don't just do it based on, some other external thing. Jake Rubel says, I need help with the BL Heli Chrome app. Now I scrolled up and I lost him. Damn it. Wow, you're gone, Jake. I've lost you. There it is. The Windows version works, but the Chrome app doesn't. It shows connected, then nothing comes on the screen. Jake Rubel, the Chrome apps have been discontinued, basically. They're not all being updated. So that's probably why the Chrome app doesn't work. You need to use the Windows version. There you go. Is it okay to have Tonio9606 asks, is it okay to have left-hand polarized antennas on the goggles and right-hand polarized antennas on the quad, or vice versa? If you do that, you will get a significant reduction in range. So no, don't do that. There's no good reason to do that. There you go. Worst person view, I am working on an F7. I talked about this last night on the stream a little bit. The next version of the JB flight controller will be both an F4 and an F7, exactly the same layout. You'll just be able to pick your processor. I just last week got the first production prototypes to test and approve. That means that it might be out in 6 months if there's a problem, or it might be out in 2 months if everything goes smoothly. No promises. Please don't hold your breath, and please don't make me regret talking about it here on the stream. But I like to let you guys in on these things, but actually I've been like, sometimes a new version of hardware will come out and it'll have a problem, and then you have to go back to China and it takes a month to get a new prototype, because that's just how these things go. And you get the new prototype and there's a problem, and then so sometimes it just takes 2 months of back and forth nonsense before you get something fixed. And then sometimes it goes well and it's just ready to go. So let's see here. Vampire 4997 asks, how do I make a full UART with soft serial? Do you have a video on it? I don't, but it's actually not too hard, Vampire. Let me just jump here into Betaflight and I'll show you how to do it. So you may be familiar with, you type resource and you look here and, like, for example, resource LED strip 1 B08. You go, okay, I'm going to turn that into soft serial. And then you would type resource LED strip 1 none. That frees up the resource. And you type resource serial TX11 B08. And that's going to put serial TX, soft serial TX onto B08. Well, what about RX? Because if you're like going to do a GPS, you need TX and RX. You would do resource serial RX11, and you would need to pick a pin. So let's just put it on AO2, which is motor 4. Well, that wouldn't work because we have a quadcopter. We need motor 4, but you could do that. So when you do serial TX11, that's the transmit pin. When you do serial RX11, that's the receive pin, and then you're done, and then you're ready to go. Okay, that's the answer. Cronus FPV, we're not doing Monty Python sketches. We're not in theater in college anymore. No Monty Python sketches. Let's see here. Thank you very much, Broke Mechanic, for the $5. Very happy to have helped you. Anthony Short says, what's the point in doing an F4 and an F7? Is it price? Yeah, Anthony, that's exactly right. The F4 is cheaper. Literally, the chip itself is cheaper. So I don't know exactly what the price difference will be, but if you look at boards today, the difference between an F4 and an F7, an F4 often comes in around 35 or 40 bucks, and an F7 often comes in closer to 40, 45, or 50 bucks. And some of that is market demand, that people just know they can charge more for an F7, but some of that is that the chip itself is cheaper. So in this case, we've got the exact same board, one with an F4, one with an F7, and the difference in price between them will correspond to the difference in price between the chip itself. So, license to drive. Have I heard about the Emax Eco motors? What do I think? I have heard about the Emax Eco motors. And let's just throw this up here on the stream. So these are the Emax Eco motors. I'm super excited about them. It is a, let's like right here, we got a 2306 1700 kV or 2400 kV motor for 12 bucks. And a lot of times a $12 motor is going to be really crappy. Like, you can look at motors like the DYS Samguk motors, which are very economical motors and they're pretty crappy. I mean, they're worth what you pay for them, but they definitely are not great motors by any means. So these are eco-focused motors by Emax, and it's encouraging because Emax has a great history of making motors. So if anybody's going to be able to make kind of a half-decent motor for a cheap price, I feel like it's Emax. And Emax is actually sending me a set of these. It looks like it's 2306. Is that it? 2306? I guess so. If anybody's going to be able to make a half-decent motor at a budget price, it's Emax, and I'm looking forward to getting to test them. But I'm cautiously positive about these motors because Emax has such a good history of making motors in the past. IV asks, what's the difference between left hand and right hand polarized in performance? There is no difference at all, IV. Left or right hand, neither is better. It's just that left-hand antennas don't talk to right-hand antennas and vice versa. So if you're at a race and you want to get the most people in the air, you have half the pilots on left hand and half the pilots on right hand, and it gives you a little bit more interference avoidance. Suicide Kings says, my wife says, hey, she's listened to you every night also. Tell your wife I said hi, Suicide Kings. Joe Mama asks, hey, somebody brought up your parallel board. It made me think of a question. Is there a way to calibrate it? Mine has always been slightly off. No, Joe Mama, the voltage readout on my parallel board was never really intended to be super accurate. It's just intended for you to plug your batteries in and tell if they are close to each other. So oftentimes the voltage readout on my parallel board reads 0.1 or even 0.2 volts high or low. And it's always bugged me, but whenever I say to the guys, can we fix this? They're like, oh, it's going to be so much labor to hand tune every one. And I'm like, fine. So the point of that voltage readout on the parallel board is just to check the batteries to see if they are safe to plug in, not to be used as a general purpose cell checker. Let's see here. What else do we have? The Philly 64 gives $5. Thank you, Philly. And says, thanks for keeping everyone in this hobby up to date on new products and keeping manufacturers honest with real reviews. Thanks, the Philly. I do my best. I do my best. Piranha 32. What are my thoughts on the bounding quad question posted earlier? Piranha, I missed that one. Can you, I'm not seeing a question about a bounding quad. So if you want to refresh my memory, I will be happy to weigh in on that. Let's see here. Bobby Brooks wants to know, what is your solution to a bad twitch when you punch and then let off the throttle? This is with my JB flight controller and ESC. I guess, Bobby, I would want to see some video of it because I would want to know what you mean by twitch. Whether it's a twitch or whether it's like a dip or whether it's a... There's various ways you could describe that, and I'd want to see it before I actually weighed in. Okay? Brink asks, why is more effort not put into making drones more aerodynamic? Brink, if you look at the guys who are doing top speed runs, I did an interview with some guys. Let's see if I can find it. No. These keybinds are going to kill me. Yeah, here we go. I did an interview with these guys who did the world drone speed record. These guys are, they have submitted their attempt for validation to the Guinness Book of World Records. They went 199 miles per hour and is being validated. And if it's validated, they will hold the record. These guys, take a look at the thumbnail here. You can't really see it very well, but they do all kinds of aerodynamic stuff. The problem with trying to be aerodynamic on a typical quad is that, number one, the angle is not consistent. So if you were to build an airfoil coming straight off the arms, well, at this angle, that's just creating drag. And it's actually causing the quad to want to pitch forward or whatever. So knowing the angle is tough because the angle isn't consistent. And then the other thing is that, I mean, we kind of just like the way they fly with the drag. Freestyle pilots especially like the quad to be able to slow down when we get off the throttle. One of the things these guys said in the interview was that the first time you fly their super aerodynamic quad, you give it to a racer and they overshoot every single turn because when you back off the throttle, it just goes, yeah, it doesn't slow down at all. So actually, because we don't have braking, having a lot of drag actually lets us slow down more effectively. The bottom line is that that's what we've gotten used to flying, and we like how they fly, and that's just how it is. The exception to that is a lot of racers do try to reduce drag by using vertical arms or thin arms, and that also gets you more thrust from your prop thrust column. But those are some of the reasons why more effort isn't put into aerodynamics. Piranha 32 asks, a question about tuning Betaflight and the Tiny Hawk. After I entered the settings from Project Mockingbird, the quad started to bounce off the ground. I tried to play with the P and D settings, but it didn't help. It still jumps every time it touches the ground. If you, Piranha32, if you are in auto level mode, the P and D settings aren't what you should play with. You should reduce the level strength. My guess is if you're in auto level mode, that the level strength, Project Mockingbird cranks the level strength up pretty high, and so it may just be overreacting. I would try reducing the level strength. I think they set it to like 90 or 100. Take it down to like 70 or 80 and see if that helps. Chucky Sleaze says air mode could be the culprit. You are correct, Chucky. Air mode does increase the tendency of the quad to bounce when it hits an obstacle, but I would rather leave air mode on. I think the quad flies better with air mode on. I probably wouldn't turn air mode off to fix that. I would try to fix that some other way. Archmage AU says, do you know of any way to reduce the bounce reaction in Betaflight when you touch something? Like when you're racing, clip a flag gate, or touch the ground, the quad seems to rocket to the stratosphere before you can regain control. Archmage, turning off air mode does improve that, although I still prefer to fly with air mode on. Raising D gain very high can cause the quad to overreact when it hits something. So if you've got D gain turned up, or if you've got your filters turned way down, because you're trying to get the best possible prop wash handling, that can actually cause that. It's one of the things that I like a lot about Betaflight 4.0, and it's also true in 3.5. The dynamic filter and the RPM filter in 4.0 will do a better job of dealing with changing dynamic conditions. But those are some things to think about. Maybe lower your D gains if you've raised them. Filter a little bit more if you've turned the filtering down. The other thing that I've seen cause this, Archmage, is if you have soft mounted your flight controller too much, like you've got it on gummies and rubber standoffs, and you've got a soft mounted gyro. When you get too much soft mounting on the flight controller, you can get a kind of a mid-frequency wobble when you hit something, and it can create a feedback loop that causes the quad to try to fly to the sky. The first time I ever experienced this was I was working on a prototype of the Kakute flight controller. This was the Kakute F4. And Holy Bro was trying different types of foam. The Kakute has a foam-mounted gyro. And the foam they had was too thick and too soft, so that when you hit a branch, the gyro itself would kind of go blah, 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 and that would create a feedback loop that would make the quad fly to the air, fly to the sky. So there's some thoughts about that. Let's see. Yeah, X-Chino 2, if you're flying in stability, if you're flying in angle mode, you don't need air mode on. I don't fly in angle mode enough to actually know if that's true, but I believe you. Ivy asks, do you think your opinion of D-Cut and 4.0 could change with the official release, specifically the video released the other day, how you didn't notice much difference in performance? Ivy, remember, I was testing the RPM filter. I wasn't testing D-Cut at all, so nothing I've said until now should be interpreted as a comment on D-term cut. The RPM filter, several people have pointed out that that I actually disabled the D-term filter, which the Sugar K tuning guide actually says not to do. I'm not sure how that happened. I certainly think that you shouldn't draw any strong conclusions just from one video, no matter who made the video. If I make that video and I say the RPM filter is the best thing since sliced bread, and you get excited, that's cool, but that's just one guy and one quad. You need to test it for yourself. You need to get additional data. And likewise, if I test it and I say, oh, I didn't notice a massive difference, that's just one guy. And I'm still very excited about 4.0 and many of the features brought to it. So let's see here. Should we use the Pololu 5-volt voltage regulator to power an FPV camera? If it helps to resolve split mini V1 freeze, could it be a better way to power every FPV camera? Born to be Alive, the issue you're having with the split mini V1 is the split mini V1 is very sensitive to its voltage input. It needs 5.0 volts, not 4.99. And if you get any sag at all on the of 5-volt regulator, the Split Mini V1 has a problem. So no, I would not assume that using a Pololu regulator for every FPV camera would improve it. Most FPV cameras are way more tolerant of a little bit of drop in voltage than the Split Mini. 7hat, or that guy. See, I'm still doing it, that guy. How many freestyle pilots here fly with an artificial horizon? I don't think many do. Remember, the artificial horizon depends on the accelerometer, and even if you're like going through a turn, it rolls to the outside. I'm just not sure that it's that useful. But oh my goodness, I have some super chats I've been missing. Vampire 4997 commenting on the soft serial question. Yeah, you put serial TX11 and serial RX11. Cam control on the RX and LED on the TX. You can use the cam control pad for soft serial. I didn't used to think you could, but somebody told me that they tried it and it worked. So the JBF4 actually has 2 pads available for soft serial. One is cam control and one is LED strip, although he didn't use both of them at the same time. So he says it seems to be working. GPS module seems to be working. Awesome. Show and Tell Pro gives $5 in the super chat. Thank you, Show and Tell Pro, and says, hey Joshua, thanks for what you do for the hobby. Is there any chance of lag when switching an FPV cam to 16.9? No, I would not expect the sensor to have any more or less lag in 16.9 versus 4.3 mode. I have heard of some cases where switching from NTSC to PAL causes difference in lag. However, so I wouldn't expect different lag in 4.3 versus 16.9, but I would want to test that before I said anything like I was really sure, because you never know. Vampire, what other pad could I use? On the JB, you don't have a lot of options, Vampire. The JB does not have a lot of spare pads for you to mess around with like that. I'm sorry to say. What I always recommend is to use, the question I would ask you, Vampire, is what else are you using on the flight controller? Because maybe there's something else you could put on soft serial, like smart audio. And then you have a free UART for your GPS. Maybe that's something to think about. Let's see here. Kramit asks, am I going to try out the new 45 amp $50 ESC that came out this week? Kramit, what ESC is that? Post me a link to it and I'll take a look at it. M. Timal, would you put a GPS on a freestyle quad? You know I would. In fact, I have one freestyle quad with GPS on it, and I put the GPS on there just because I wanted to test it out. But the moment that sold me on it was when somebody else powered on and I lost video. And instead of going, ah, damn it, and losing my quad in a tree, I just hit the GPS rescue and my quad went, and by the time it flew back to me, I had been like, hey, power down, power down. And I got my quad back. So GPS rescue saved me from getting powered up on and crashing my quad. And I was like, any quad can benefit from having a GPS, not just a long-range quad. That's the answer there. Do you get altitude with GPS ZZ? I think you get altitude above your takeoff point, not above sea level. Yeah, Michael Clagies says, I got to put GPS on my racer just to get the speed. Absolutely. Even if you don't do return to home, if you want to do speed runs, GPS velocity is very, very accurate, down to 0.01 meter per second, I think, on most GPS units. So if you just want to do speed runs, but you don't want to deal with a radar gun, GPS is more accurate than a radar gun. And in fact, what the guys who are doing the top speed runs were telling me is that the Guinness Book of World Records doesn't accept radar gun based quadcopter speed records because it's too easy to get bad readings. They accept GPS based speed runs. Primitive FPV, I will always give Parmesan approvals. I don't know what those are, and I really hope that 10 years from now there's not like a Me Too movement that it turns out that Parmesan means I espouse something really unsavory. But I'm going to assume that Parmesan is just a stupid meme from the UFDA crew. And so, yeah, Parmesan forever, my friend. Flippin' quads. Betaflight won't arm. CLI shows no status issues. Switch moves but does not turn yellow. Flippin' quads, what I would recommend in your situation is, first of all, go to the OSD tab if you haven't already done this. Because a lot of times what people do is they go to the CLI and they type status. And, damn it. They type status and they look at the, what? No gyro? Are you for real? Wow. Well, I only ever use this flight controller for the sim, but wow, no gyro. This thing's broke. Okay, anyway, moving on. You look at the arming disable flags here in the CLI, and then you go try to fly, and it doesn't work. And the thing is, it can be different on the bench than in the field. So what I recommend you do is, hold on, I have to reconnect my flight controller here. There it is. What I recommend you do is you go to the OSD, and you turn on the warnings element. See it right here? Warnings. And the warning you want is arming disabled. This other stuff you could turn off. It doesn't really matter. Turn on the warning disabled, and that then save and go and try to fly. And when you try to arm, it'll flash a warning. Okay. Oh, you're right, MC Creations. If I've got no gyro, then I certainly don't have accelerometer either. Good point. So this will tell you for sure whether there is an arming status problem when you're trying to fly. What you then do is, if you try to arm and it doesn't give you an arming status code, it means Betaflight doesn't think you actually tried to arm. So you got to double check your arming mode or your receiver channels or anything like that. Damn it, really? FPV gives $2 and says, quickly, tell us your background. You're a library. I did Wi-Fi engineering for many years before I got into quads. Most of my background is not professional. It's just hobbyist. The stuff you see me doing here, I wasn't, the job skill that most applies to what I do now is that I was a classroom instructor, not in school, but in a corporate classroom instructor. Like, you bought our software for your engineering team, and then you paid for me to come out and give a class to your engineering team for 3 days on how to use the software. I was that guy. And I did that for about 10 years out of college and took very seriously my role as a conveyor of knowledge about some stupid piece of corporate software, but I took it very seriously. And I did courseware development, so I did PowerPoint slides, basically creating courses and writing courses for other instructors to teach. And that, I think, has directly translated into my ability to create educational materials here on YouTube. So there you go. "100% Parmesan approved." There we go. Mind Games FPV asks, Brain FPV Radix is supposed to have a better gyro. Have you ever built a quad with one and confirmed if it's actually better than more standard gyros? I have not done that, Mind Games. However, the Beast class build that I'm working on will have a Brain FPV Radix in it. It's not really a fair comparison to compare it to a 5-inch quad, but it will. Joshua Baran asks, gives $5 in the super chat. Thank you, Joshua. And asks, have you gotten your hands on an Armatan Marmot yet? No, I haven't. And somehow UAV Futures did before me, and I'm very annoyed about it. But I just like, all right, fine, screw it, Armatan. Whatever I got to do. I put in a pre-order today for 2 of them, and they should be coming as soon as... I'll get them as soon as you get them. How fair is that? Thoughts about the Marmot? I talked about the Marmot a little bit in yesterday's stream, so definitely go check out that DVR if you want to hear more about that. But I'm very excited about the Marmot. I like the fact that it fits a micro camera. I like the fact that it has adjustable up tilt for both the GoPro and the FPV cam. The Chameleon TI is already my favorite frame, but the things I don't like about it are that the front end is kind of big and it adds to the weight, and I'm running micro cameras everywhere anyway, so the front end, I'm glad that the front end on the Marmot is smaller and lighter. And then some people, especially people who fly like super juicy style, like really low up tilt, and the Chameleon can't do that. It can't go below about, I think, about 25 degrees, where the Marmot will be able to. So there we go. Show and Tell Pro, is lag on FPV 16.9? I think we answered that one. Show and Tell, I don't think there should be any difference in lag between the 16.9 and the 4.3. First person Q, thoughts on the toothpick? The toothpick. Here's what I think about it. Let's just bring it up. Now, it's funny that Bob Ruge, made a frame called the toothpick because he's a dentist. Get it? It's called the toothpick and he's a dentist. So that's funny. Okay. This is the toothpick from Kebab FPV. It is sized for 1106 motors and I think 2-inch props. And every single person who has flown it has said it's wow, it's really amazing. Here's a picture of what one looks like kind of built up. Very interesting and exciting. I don't have any comment about it yet because I haven't flown it yet, but everybody who has flown it has been super impressed with it. So the thing is, everybody says when I review a like a Mobula 7 or a tiny a trash can, they say toothpick's better. And I'm like, yeah, well, toothpick is 2-inch props, open props, no ducts. It's just not even fair to compare it to something like a Mobula. They're not in any way the same thing. So that's what I would say about that. I think the toothpick is super cool. I don't know if I'm going to build one, though. Mark Dibble asks, are we going to see any more flying wings on your channel? You know, Mark, that video I did with Sam Pankratz about the GPS, about the, what was it about? Oh, yeah, the DJI AkiSync. I would like to do here's what I thought would be cool to do, would be to do a build with like the what's that ready-made RC? What's that? Well, the micro goblin. That's it. The micro goblin, I think they call it. Is that what they call it? Hang on. Yeah, I think it's the nano goblin. People have said that the Nano Goblin from Ready Made RC is this really easy to fly wing. It's fun as hell. It flies for 20 plus minutes. It has a really slow stall speed, and it's just a really nice one. And what I thought I would like to do is build the Nano Goblin as a traditional wing, and then put iNav in it as a project. At my pace, it will be 6 months before I actually do that, but I do want to let you know that's in the back of my mind as something that would be really fun. Have you heard of the 3B Hobby 2306 training motors? That's interesting. So I was just recommending some 3B Hobby motors on the stream earlier, but I don't know if they were the training motors. So here are the 3B Hobby training motor, a $12 motor. Very interesting. The 3B Hobby, again, a very solid manufacturer of budget motors. We've got the Eco motor from Emax coming in at about 12, 13 bucks. I got to tell you guys, I really do think if you're shopping for budget motors that, pardon me. Sorry about that, guys. I do think, Cotes, this is live. Shut up. Boom. I really do think that the $12 price point is, like, if you're searching for a budget motor and you get down into the $8 or $9 price point, there are so many compromises in those motors. So many compromises. But a $12 or $13 motor can be about 200 times better than an $8 or $9 motor. So I really think that $12 or $13 price point, like the 3B Hobby training motor or the Emax Eco motor, is something to think about. If you compare that to something like the Blaster motor, like the Blaster motor is 28 bucks and comes with a replacement policy. So you can buy, what is it? 12, I'm not going to try to do math on the stream, because the Blasters, you have to pay, I think, $15, $16 to replace it. So I'm not sure where the break-even point, how many 3B Hobby motors you would have to break even on a set of Blasters. There are certainly a lot of people out there for whom just spend 12 or 13 bucks on a cheap motor and then hope you don't break it is a better deal than paying like 28 bucks for a Blaster and using the replacement program a lot of times. Viper FPV, it's not deceptive. It's not deceptive. I just didn't read the whole terms of use here on the stream live. Give me a break. The replacement program for the blaster motors is limited. It ends on October 2019. And that is right there in the terms that you are free to read when you buy the freaking motors. Nobody's trying to mislead anybody. It's just you know, here on the stream, I don't read the full terms. Yeah. Yeah, whether it's worth it for you or not depends on how often you break motors. That's the bottom line. I think I remember doing the math and deciding that the break-even point on like an $18 motor or whatever was like 3 motors. So if you fly over concrete a lot, if you fly in bandos and you break 1 motor every week, that might be a good deal for you. If not, you might do better. I would say also that the blaster motor is probably, if you look at the features and stuff, it's probably comparable to about a $20 motor. I would be interested to see how the specs on the 3B Hobby training motor stack up to the blaster in terms of, like, does it have a titanium shaft? Does it have a hollow shaft? You know, etc. And it probably does have a hollow shaft. Anyway. So I've said that the blaster is probably about a $19 or $20 motor, for which you pay $28 with a replacement program. That ends in October 2019. Anyway. Let's see here. What's that, Viper? We're selling them, not you, about the replacement program, but never saying until October. Sorry, I'm not following you, Viper. Psych Ward FPV. You have your XM Plus in 8-channel mode for lower lag. You are limited to 4 switches on the Tyrannus. Well, I got good news for you, Psych Mode. Psych Ward. Psych Ward, I have the exact video for you, my friend. This is a video showing how I put all of my flight modes on one aux channel. So you can take these principles and use them to make the most of the 4 aux channels that you have. Here, I'll post a link to this video in the chat. Psych Ward FPV. There we go. I even put a little @ mention for you there, buddy. Okay. Gavin Noons, I'm looking for a new build project. Want to go with TBS Crossfire. Currently using Spectrum DX6. Is it worth picking up a new controller that supports the smaller module? Gavin, I don't think the DX6 can... Somebody in chat, tell me if I'm wrong. Don't you need at least the DX9 to do Crossfire on Spectrum? Can the DX6 do Crossfire at all? Okay. Formula FPV, what stator size and KV would be best for a 5040 prop? I think the motor that's very well suited to a 5040 was like a 2600 kV 2206. But today, most people are using larger motors, and I think the 5040 prop is underpropped on most modern motors. Hazard FPV says the DX6 can do Crossfire through the trainer port. Yeah, but that's PPM input, Hazard. Nobody wants that. I mean, that's not what people are talking about when they want to do Crossfire. They want the digital input, right? And I think that's the DX9. How about a 2-watt booster on my FSI-6 instead of getting Crossfire? Blades FPV, boosters usually don't give you as amazing results as you think they're going to get. You should just get the right thing to start with. Taking a crappy 2.4 gigahertz signal and boosting it to 2 watts will give you better range, but there's all kinds of other downsides to it. It's not just like, ooh, look, free range. Okay. What's my thought on the Liam Bojang? What's my thoughts on the Maytech F722 SE? Liam, hang on. I reviewed the Lumineer Lux F7 very positively. I'm going to put a link to that in the chat for you, Liam. And I liked it a lot. The Lumineer Lux F722 SE is the same flight controller, basically, except the Lux F7 has a built-in PDB, so it's an all-in-one. And the Lux F7 has all the pads on top of the board, or the F722, It has all the pads on top of the board, whereas the Lux F7 has some of the pads on the underside. So I actually think in a lot of ways, the Maytech F722 SD is better. But either one of them, they're very good feature set. Very impressed. Let's see here. Should I get the 2450 or the 2650 kV 3B hobby? Asks Suicide Kings in the Discord. I will always take I love a 2700 kV motor. A higher kV motor will have less linear of a throttle curve. It'll have more sort of pop at the top end and less sort of control and linearity at the bottom. This is pretty subtle, and a lot of people may not really notice it very much of a difference. The other big difference, a 2650 kV is going to have more power at the top end a little bit. So if you're at high throttle a lot, 2650 is going to be where you're going to want to be. But 2450 is going to draw fewer amps with the same prop and going to have a little bit more linearity. I think the differences are subtle, but for me, the type of freestyle I like to do where you have a lot of sort of punches, I feel like that's better suited for a higher kV motor. But 2450 is a great if you're not sure, get 2450 kV. You won't go wrong. Let's see here. Guillermo Nespolo asks, what is the point of buying an expensive radio like a DX9 just to put Crossfire in it? Get a cheap Tyrannus. Guillermo, you should have seen what Alex Vanover was flying. Alex Vanover is currently sponsored by Futaba and is flying like an $800 Futaba radio with a Crossfire hanging out the back. So some people some people just love Spectrum radios. They love the gimbals, they love the switches, and they want to put Crossfire on it. You know, if it's your money to spend, go for it. Can you safely, Bob Barkhurst wants to know, can you safely run mixed KV motors in a repair situation? Yeah, you can, but you're going to it's going to affect the flight characteristics of the quad. It will get you in the air. Okay. Blue Mountains FPV gives 10 Australian dollars. I really don't really know what that's worth in American dollars, but I'm going to assume that it's like American dollars, but turned upside down. Blue Mountains FPV gives 10 Australian dollars and says, I'm a beginner. Thanks to you and your channel, my dingo 5 inches. So you're Australian and you own a dingo. You don't see the irony in that? Okay. All right, moving on. Primitive FPV gives, wow, what a coincidence, Primitive FPV. How did you end up at that dollar amount? Gives $4.20. So I'm glad FPV has a Joshua Bardwell. Thank you. Guys, we are coming up on the end of the hour and the end of the live stream. And I am going to close up tonight. Thank you guys so much for showing up. The question that you're all probably wondering is, are we going to live stream again tomorrow? And the answer is we are not going to be live streaming tomorrow because I have a video scheduled for a release tomorrow morning. It's timed. Well, when you see it, you'll know why it's coming out tomorrow. But so tomorrow there will be no live stream in the evening. I'm going to put a video out. And what is tomorrow? It's Friday. I think I'm going to do the same thing on Saturday. I think I've got a video queued for Saturday to put out. And then I think probably I'm going to be back on Sunday with another live stream. No, Skimsy, I did say last night, I said, if a video comes out this morning, then I won't live stream today. And a video didn't come out this morning. It was last night's live stream. That doesn't count. So I know for a fact the video that was going to come out this morning is coming out tomorrow. So there will be a regular video tomorrow morning. Then probably a regular video on Saturday. And I think I'm going to do another live stream. Like I said, I'm going to keep doing it till you guys get bored or I get bored. Right? Had 403 concurrent viewers with a peak of 459. So that's about the same as last night and the night before. So you guys are, as long as you're watching, I'm going to keep going or until I just kind of go crazy and get sick of it and can't do it anymore. But thank you guys so much for watching. That's going to do it for the stream. Thank you to the YouTube chat. Hey, where was Arthur? Not Arthur. Alex Vanover. No. What's his name? I can't. I'm done. He wasn't here tonight. You know who I'm talking about. Thank you to the Discord. Thanks to everybody who gave in the super chat. I am going to get out of here. Bye, everybody.